I never imagined the first person to ask why I hated my own family would be my 12-year-old granddaughter. She looked at me with tearful eyes, completely convinced I had spent years choosing to stay away from the people who loved me most. Before I could answer, she whispered the words that stole every bit of air from my lungs. "Mom said you never wanted us." I smiled because I could not let her see my heart breaking. But inside everything changed. If Emma believed those words, then who else did? How many birthdays had passed while they thought I simply did not care enough to come? How many holidays had they celebrated believing I had turned my back on them? How many conversations had happened with someone else speaking in my place? At that moment, I still believed I was facing one painful misunderstanding. I had no idea I was standing at the beginning of something much larger. That single sentence would slowly uncover years of quiet deception hidden beneath polite smiles, thoughtful gestures, and carefully chosen excuses. My name is Margaret Hayes. For nearly 40 years I believed love, patience, and consistency were enough to hold a family together. I was wrong. Looking back now, I can see the small cracks that appeared long before everything finally collapsed. At the time they looked like ordinary disappointments. A missed phone call. An invitation that somehow never reached me. A family dinner rescheduled after everyone else already knew. I blamed busy schedules, growing families, and the natural distance that comes with adulthood. It never crossed my mind that someone had quietly taken control of every story before it reached the people I loved. By the time Emma asked that heartbreaking question, an entirely different version of me had already been living inside my family's memories for years, and I did not even know it existed. After Emma ran back to join her classmates, I remained outside the school long after the last families had disappeared through the auditorium doors. The autumn breeze brushed against my face, but it could not quiet the questions racing through my mind. Emma had not invented those words. Children repeat the stories they trust, especially when those stories come from the people they love most. During the drive home, I replayed the past several years with fresh eyes. Thanksgiving dinners that somehow changed dates without me knowing. Christmas brunches where everyone apologized because they believed I had already declined the invitation. Emma's birthday parties where I was told she wanted to celebrate only with friends, only to discover later the whole family had been there. Each moment had seemed like an unfortunate misunderstanding. Together, they formed a pattern that was impossible to ignore. That evening, instead of sitting quietly with my doubts, I picked up the telephone. I called my younger sister, Susan, simply to ask how she had enjoyed Emma's school ceremony. After a brief pause, she said something that made my heart sink. "Margaret, I wish you had come." Emma kept looking toward the audience before everything started. I struggled to answer. "Susan, I never knew there was a ceremony today." Silence filled the line before she spoke again, this time with uncertainty. "Lauren told all of us you said school events were not really your thing anymore." I closed my eyes. I had never spoken those words. Not once. Susan sounded genuinely confused as she apologized, insisting she thought I had chosen not to come. When the call ended, I remained standing in my kitchen, staring at the silent telephone. For the first time, I stopped wondering why my family seemed so distant. Instead, I began asking a different question. How many people had been told a story about me that I had never even heard myself? The following morning, I opened the small cedar chest where I had kept decades of birthday cards, family photographs, church programs, and handwritten letters. I was not searching for evidence against anyone. I simply needed reassurance that my own memories could still be trusted. One by one, I spread everything across the dining room table. As I compared dates, another detail quietly emerged. Nearly every family gathering during the past 3 years had been organized through Lauren. She created the group messages, coordinated schedules, and offered to relay updates so Daniel could focus on work. At the time, I had admired how effortlessly she kept everyone connected. Now I wondered if she had slowly become the only path through which information reached the family. Before putting everything away, I decided to make one more phone call. This time I reached Daniel's longtime friend, Kevin. We had always enjoyed easy conversations, and I trusted he would answer honestly. After a few minutes of catching up, I asked whether he remembered Emma's spring school concert. "Of course," he replied. "Daniel said you couldn't make it because you thought those school events were a little childish." My fingers tightened around the receiver. "Kevin," I asked quietly, "did you ever hear those words from me?" He hesitated before answering. No. Lauren mentioned it during the reception afterward. Everyone assumed she was repeating what you had told Daniel. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Kevin finally cleared his throat and admitted something that troubled him. Margaret, now that you ask. Most of what I know about your decisions actually came from Lauren. I guess none of us ever thought to check with you ourselves. After we ended the call, I looked around my quiet dining room. Susan had believed Lauren. Kevin had believed Lauren. Even people who genuinely cared about me had accepted her version without question because it always sounded reasonable. Piece by piece, the same pattern kept appearing. For years, someone had not only been changing my plans. She had been quietly rewriting my reputation. That night I barely slept. Every conversation from the past few years seemed to return one after another, each one carrying a meaning I had never recognized before. By morning, I had stopped asking whether these were isolated misunderstandings. There were simply too many of them. Instead of calling Daniel, I decided to let the facts lead me before my emotions did. I sat at my dining room table with my old planner, printed emails, greeting cards, and the notebook where I had begun recording every date people mentioned. As I arranged everything in order, another pattern quietly revealed itself. Whenever I supposedly canceled a visit, there was never a message from my phone confirming it. Whenever I missed an important family event, someone always said Lauren had already explained everything. The explanations were different each time, but they all reached the same conclusion. I had chosen not to be there. Late that afternoon, my telephone rang again. It was Susan. Her voice sounded unusually hesitant. Margaret, I kept thinking about our conversation yesterday, she said. There is something else you should know. She explained that nearly a year earlier, Lauren had privately asked several relatives not to pressure me into attending family gatherings because I supposedly wanted more distance from everyone. Susan admitted she had believed she was respecting my wishes. My heart sank, but this time I did not question my memory. I simply wrote another date in my notebook. Another conversation. Another person who had heard the same story. By the time I closed the notebook that evening, one truth had become impossible to ignore. None of the people I loved had deliberately pushed me away. They had simply been given a version of me that never truly existed. And for the first time, I realized this was no longer about proving my innocence. It was about helping my family discover the truth before another year of precious memories quietly disappeared.